Welcome into the Fun Astrology Podcast. Thomas Miller kicking off our new week. Thanks so much for joining us. Glad you're here. If you're one of our newer listeners, maybe from the TikTok videos, welcome aboard. We're glad you're here. We're going to take a look at the week ahead, which is going to take us about 22 seconds. Then I've got some stuff I want to talk about on the banking situation relative to the chart that we've been focusing on last Thursday's Pluto ingress into Aquarius. All right, let's take a look at the week ahead. I can do more than 22. I got this. All right. So first of all, the big action day, if you want to even call it that, really is Thursday, and the big aspects there are Mars trining Saturn on Thursday, then Venus conjuncts Uranus. These are both in the afternoon/evening based on Eastern Daylight Time. All right, so the two malefics are in a trine, so there's going to be that's going to be some pull, but Venus and Uranus, and we're going to tie this into what we're talking about on the Pluto into Aquarius chart. Just remember that we are building every day this week toward Venus and Uranus. Venus, money. Venus, relationships. Uranus, sudden surprises. Venus is fast moving. This could be quick in, quick out, not much noticed. Or we could have something that builds through this week and maybe crescendos. The other aspect this week is Mercury tomorrow conjoins Jupiter, and that's in Aries. So whatever you blurt out, you might just get away with. If you've been holding back on that TikTok video thinking you might get censored, tomorrow would be about your best shot in the next, 8 months to go ahead and pull it off. The rest of this week is quiet. I do have some listener questions. We will get to those. Kristen and I are talking about doing one of those pop-up group readings that we did when I was in Florida. I'll let you know on that. We're discussing some dates, but looks like one of those is coming ahead. And then when we turn the page to next week, on Monday, the moon wobble starts, at least the 21-day moon wobble, and I'll tell you more about that on Monday. And then we have a full moon on the 6th. The solar eclipse on the 20th, and Mercury goes retrograde on the 21st. April is not without its excitement, so let's enjoy this quiet week, at least if it is quiet. Now, let's go back to this Pluto ingress into Aquarius chart because there's another theme that I'd like to pull out, and that is the theme of money. Here's the headline that I want to base this on, and that is that everybody is saying right now, if you don't have more than $250,000 in a given bank, then you don't have anything to worry about. Not true. The FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, I'm reading from their website, is an independent agency created by the Congress, that should make you feel good right there, to maintain stability and public confidence in the nation's financial system by insuring deposits, blah, 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 and on it goes. Well, the person who controls the purse strings of the FDIC would ultimately be Janet Yellen, and she was quoted last week very clearly saying that they may or may not come to the aid of banks. Now, why is it important? Because the FDIC's capitalization, how much money it could get its hands on, is $125 billion. Let's put that in perspective. In 2008, the last crisis, the smallest amount of money that would have been needed from the FDIC to bail all the banks out was $700 billion. For those of you who are aware of the details of what was going on back then, you remember, too big to fail. Well, it's because if the FDIC didn't have the money, where's the money going to come from? That time it came from the pen of President George W. Bush. This time, the President, the Federal Reserve, and the Treasury, the same players that would have done it last time, released about $300 billion in emergency funding, fully double what the FDIC is worth. And please, right there, don't trust my numbers. Do your own research and see if they hold up, because different sources report different numbers. These numbers are so big and there is no accountability. I tried to get them from as trustworthy of sources as possible. So I want you to understand that as we're looking at this chart, the numbers that you're being told don't match up. The FDIC, if there were a broad run on banks, would not have the capital to bail it all out. And by the way, what's the backup plan? Well, if you go and you can't get your $5,000 out of your checking account, they give you certificates. You'll be able to when the money is there. And after the 2008 crisis, the way they restructured banking is now that the banks, this is so crazy. Now, karma, be sure your Saturn karma sins in Pisces in the 11th house will find you out. Now the banks don't have to carry cash reserves. They said that at the end of last year, the banks were underwater on their bonds, $600 billion. I mean, we're sitting on a matchstick. So let's look at the astrology. Well, we have in the first house, Venus and Uranus in Taurus. They're about 8 and a little bit degrees apart. So you could call that either a sign-based conjunction, you could call it an 8-degree orb conjunction, but any way you slice and dice it, Venus, the money planet, is in close proximity to the planet of sudden surprises, changes, radical. Now here's where it gets interesting. Yesterday, as I was preparing for this, I just had a prompt to put Algol back on my chart. Wondered where it would be in relation to all of this. Algol, the most malefic of the malefic, fixed star. Want to know where it is? Second house of money in the sign of Taurus, 26 degrees. When I'm reading a chart, I always like to observe patterns. Is something sitting isolated by itself, or is it in a cluster of that pattern or that theme repeating itself 2 or 3 or more times? The more times it repeats, the more likely it is to show up. We definitely have a money theme with Venus and Uranus in proximity. We have a major transformation theme. We have a karma theme. And now we have a fixed star, whether you like to acknowledge those or not, is in a very precarious place. So what are you saying, Thomas? What's the bottom line? I'm saying that you have to take a look at the risks and manage the risks. That's a decision I can't make for you. I have no idea what your situation is. Are we going to have some malefic catastrophe related to money? Well, we've already had a surprise. I mean, Venus and Uranus has already proven itself up. I don't give as much weight to the fixed stars. Number one, I haven't studied them extensively enough. And number two, I haven't proven them up for myself in my own life and in the lives of others. I have observed in watching Algol specifically in the transit chart that I base this podcast on for maybe the last year or so that I haven't seen a lot of significance. I was given a prompt, and I've learned to really acknowledge those for what they are. And to me, that says watch and observe and be aware, be awake. Read what's going on right now and realizing that what you read may or may not be true. More likely it's not. And these things are not pre-announced. And by the way, we've focused this conversation on the United States. This is not just the United States, because the big one in the headlines right now is the German bank, Deutsche Bank. So I think that we just have to take a look at these areas that are showing up in the astrology and figure out what we're going to do for what period of time to take what actions that we can sleep with at night. But mostly, I wanted you to be aware that this is looming out there, and I wanted you to be at least empowered with the numbers, that all things are not as they appear. So be conscious and be awake. And that's how we're going to get through this, folks. It's being conscious. And the stars will be our guide. Aren't you glad we have astrology? Have a great day. I'll see you back tomorrow. We'll do some listener questions tomorrow.